If you are making one of these mistakes and don't correct them now, you will build bad habits that could take years to correct. After teaching hundreds of students and researching hundreds of violin books, I have found that there are 10 mistakes you should avoid at all costs. And today, I will show you with real examples of beginners how to correct them. And the first mistake is playing without listening. Here's the main error that this man do, and that most beginners do, is to think that becoming good at the violin is just repeating things. Like, you need to get the right exercises, and then you repeat those exercises like 4 times slowly, 4 times in a medium tempo, on 4 times full speed, and then you do maybe one variation like that. But the violin doesn't work like that, okay? You can't just do it like a workout, you know, you do first this, then that. It doesn't work like this. When you practice to make progress, you need to know exactly what you are practicing on and what you want to improve. Just repeating things doesn't bring anything. For example, in this video, every tone was wrong. The intonation was terrible, the sound was bad too, and the problem is that every time you repeat the same exercise with bad intonation and bad sound, then what happens is that you are teaching yourself the wrong reflexes. And I know a lot of teachers say, it will sound later better. That's not true. If it doesn't sound beautiful now, it will not sound beautiful later on by some magic. It doesn't work like that. In fact, when you study what the best violin teachers teach, to the greatest violinists of history, it's always the same. One of the main things is that you should learn to play the violin beautifully from the very start. And basically what it means is that it doesn't matter what you are practicing or playing, it needs to sound beautiful. Now maybe you think, hey, it's easier said than done. That's true, but one of the main things you need to do to achieve that is actually just to reduce the difficulty and always start very slowly. Here, for example, if instead of directly starting in full speed, first start with a, let's say, open string, until you had a beautiful sound, then added the finger first very slowly just to find where every note is. Really trying to hearing, is this the right note? And then first the next one. So very carefully, and then when you knew every note, then very slowly starting practicing it. And if it's wrong, still repeat it, okay? We want to have everything perfect. Slow. And that's the reason why, for example, the great violinist Isaac Parman always said, practice slowly.
When you practice, it has to be slow.
And the next mistake I see is avoiding the fourth finger. Everyone thinks my fourth finger is too small, I can't play the fourth finger, and then what happened? Everyone tried to avoid it. And actually the crazy thing is that I had a lot of teachers even saying to the student like, okay, it's okay, just don't play your fourth finger. I don't use it too because it's like more difficult. That's a really wrong advice. You should really practice the fourth finger from the beginning, because if you don't, what will happen this. Here we can see it in a beginner. So here actually it doesn't sound bad. The problem is that she's never practicing the fourth finger, she's avoiding at all costs, playing open strings the whole time, and look at her hand. What's happening? What's happening is that her fourth finger is like that the whole time. Why? Because she don't need it. But the problem is that now she's like losing the fourth finger. It's like atrophying. And the day she will need to practice it, to learn it, it will be really hard because she will have this habit of having it the whole time here instead of keeping it above the string, and it will be so weak in comparison to the other finger. So what you should do instead is start practicing the fourth finger from the very beginning. Actually, not completely from the beginning. When you start with the left hand, you should learn it step by step. First only first and second finger on one string, then the third finger, but then you should add the fourth finger so that you can first on one string, play all 4 fingers accurately before you start learning the other strings. That's why I really don't like some methods that are really popular now, like the Suzuki method, because I focus more like on learning the first few fingers on every string, on bringing the 4th finger only later on, instead on focusing on mastering one string with all fingers first. So my advice for you, do 2 things. The first one is make a lot of basic exercises for the 4th finger to train it like systematically, basically every combination with the 4th finger. For example, here are some of the exercises that my students learn in level 1, week 11, when they start mastering the 4th finger. And here, those are the basic combination: 3 to 4, 2nd to 4, 1 to 4, and 0 to 4. And of course, if you are a beginner, I really advise you to use some Kintoff recordings so that you can compare it and be sure that you are playing the right things. That's, for example, what we are using with our students in the Violinacademy. And then the second thing is that every time you are playing pieces, instead of avoiding the 4th finger, try to use the 4th finger every time you can so that you train it. And by the way, if you want to learn to play the violin beautifully, you can book a free consultation call. The link is in the comment. Then the third mistake is practicing pieces that are way too difficult. So here is a good example. So I see this a lot with beginner. There is some piece you really would like to play and say like, just do it, you know? I will be courageous, I will just do it, okay? And probably when you see this video, you think like, oh, he's being courageous, he play only like 30 days, it's already working pretty good, it's in rhythm, so it's going together with the music, it's nice. Yeah, that's true, but the problem is that at the same time, he's doing a lot of things wrong. And every time he plays them, he is automating the wrong things. And here's something really important to understand is that if you repeat the same thing in the wrong way ever and ever again, what will happen is not that it will become the right thing in the end, okay? If you just repeat the same thing wrong and wrong again, it will just stay wrong, okay? It will not improve. And like we say, on the contrary, you will build bad habits that are later on really difficult to change. That means when learning the violin, it's really important to be patient. Start with really only things that you can master, completely master, like when you are recording yourself, and by the way, that's very good to record yourself, okay? But when you are recording yourself, your aim should be really that it sounds quite like a professional. By that I mean really that you have a beautiful sound, that the intonation is accurate, that you are in a good rhythm, and of course that you can play it a little bit freely, without being like focused on only one thing or being stressed, okay, that you can play it in a relaxed way. And by the way, it's never to learn to play the violin beautifully. I show different videos here. It's not like for being mean. Actually, I think that every single adult I'm showing right now could learn to play the violin beautifully. The only problem is that they are not learning the violin the right way. So, the next problem I see a lot is holding the violin the wrong way. Here, it's a good example. Here's the same, when you hear it, it sounds okay, it doesn't sound completely bad, yeah, but here there is a major problem. She is playing only in first position, and holding the violin like she do, it's working quite okay in the first position. But the thing is that when you learn the violin, it's a little bit like if you wanted to build an house. Actually, that's the reason why I name my method the Violin Pyramid Method. Because when you learn the violin, you need first to build the right foundation before you go to the next level. And here's the thing that if one day you want to be able to play the violin beautifully, that means that you want to play it with vibrato, or you want later on to play in other positions, playing pieces that are a little bit more difficult, then you will need to learn from the beginning a technique that will allow you later on to do that. And what it means is that if you can do something in the first position one way, it doesn't mean that you will be able to repeat this thing when doing vibrato or making shifting and so on. So you really need to be sure that the technique you are learning will allow you to make further progress. And actually very often people come to me like after 1 year or 5 years learning the violin, and always, yeah, I see that the same thing. It's just that they learned a lot of wrong things, okay? They have a lot of things that they are not doing the right way, and because of that, they are struggling. They can't just make any more progress, and it doesn't sound good. And always the solution is just to redo the basic, okay? They need to start again from level 1 and see really the basic, okay? And in this example, the problem was this very strange, like hold of the violin, and then moving the whole time the wrist, everything to play the note, like I don't know, like something very strange, okay? And this will not work later on, and it will be like really difficult to master the violin like that. So here what you want to do is to be sure that your holding of the violin can allow you to make shifting. A good way to test that is really like take out the shoulder pad, okay, so that it's not 100% fixed. Hold the violin and then see if you can make a shift, okay? If you can't, it means that you are not holding the violin the right way. And very often it will be because you are just pressing the violin between the thumb and the forefinger very start from the side, instead of really just supporting the violin like that. So what I want to do is first do some sort of V and put it under the violin. And then try if I can make shifting. And this problem will be the same for the vibrato. If you can't move the hand freely, you will not be able to make some vibrato. That's something you could test from the beginning. Put a finger on the string without the shoulder pad and try to move your arm like that, okay? And see if the violin stays stable. And then you really want to minimize the movement of the left hand, okay? The less movement you do, the better. Actually, if you look at some violinists, like Heifetz, for example, very old violinists, what you will see is that everything is so perfect. And that's like this for every professional violinist. Like, they move only what they absolutely need to move. That means that when you play on one string, you should move only the finger. Then, when you make a string crossing, you should do it from the elbow, like that, and not with the wrist, for example. But this is a big thing that's really hard to change later, so please learn it the right way from the beginning. So then the next thing is quite the same problem, but with the bow. If you don't like how your sound, then the next thing is quite the same, but for the bow. So let's check one example. So here we can see his hand very well. And actually, when we just listened, the sound was not bad. And I could play like that actually and have a sound that's okay. The problem here is the same as I said before. You need to think not only of now, but of what you want to be able to do in the future. Basically, learning the violin is like investing a little bit. Yeah, you want to invest in the right things so that later on you can build on your technique and become always better. And the problem if you are holding the violin, the bow like that, is that if you want to have just a soft sound, it's okay. But later on, you will need some time to play more loud. And that will be very difficult to do holding the bow like that. It will then do very difficult to do other bowings too, like spiccato, or also marcato, and so on and so on. Okay, so that it will make very difficult for you to sing with the violin, so that it really sounds beautifully, with different dynamic, a reach, okay, but it just sounds beautifully, basically. So that means that you should really have the right hold from the beginning. So here, all the wrong thing I see. So this one, the fingers are very long, like straight. Another thing I see a lot is that you are putting the finger like here, holding really like only with the tip of the finger, instead of holding it a little bit lower. Then a problem very often is that people stretch the finger too far apart, like the index very far apart, like this. Another problem is just with the small finger, okay, with the forefinger, to put it like that, okay, it's completely straight, unblocked. So now the question is, of course, what was the mistake? How should you hold the bow? So that's something I read hundreds of books, I make a lot of research on those things here. And what I really found is that the best way to hold the bow, it's very simple. Basically, you need first to put the thumb here, and then your third finger on front of it. And here, basically, we are not doing a circle like that. Instead, the thumb comes here. Okay, that's a very small difference. And they are not really in front, the thumb is at a little bit of diagonal to it, okay? Basically, it should be relaxed, okay? So don't overthink it, it's just that it should be relaxed and come naturally. And the strings then come here, where the wood and the leather come together. And here, most important is that it's relaxed. Then you put your third finger here, then the index finger here, and the fourth finger here directly. But important is that it should feel natural, okay? Like when I stay relaxed, my fingers are not like that when I'm relaxed, or like this, okay? They are just so, okay? And we just want to find the same thing on the bow. And at the end, it should look like this. That means that my fingers, they are not too far apart, they are not too tight together. There is like probably half an inch between every finger or a few millimeters. And for the index finger, the contact point on the bow is not on the first articulation, okay? It's basically here. Not on this one, that was very old bow, this, but like that. Okay? And yeah, if you look at video, that's the same thing. You need to be a little bit careful because a lot of people are still playing like that. It just is not the best way. So this was the Russian way of holding the bow, basically. There was some German hold, I don't remember exactly how it was, but it was a little bit more like that. Okay? But basically, what we see now is that most of the bass violinists hold the bow like that. That's the Belgian bow, basically. Bow holding. And then, yeah, like you see, it stays relaxed and around everything. And the same with the fourth finger. So now let's go to the next problem, and I call it not feeling the bow. Let's check a video, you will understand what I mean. So yeah, a problem I see a lot is that people will move just the bow on the string, you know, the left, right. Okay? They are not controlling the bow, they are not feeling the bow, they are not giving a direction with the bow. And because of that, the sound is not really good. Of course, you probably already heard, the bow needs to stay parallel to the bridge mostly, that's one thing, but that's not enough. Even if your bow is parallel to the bridge, so that it don't make something like that, okay, what you're playing. It's not enough. You really need to feel the bow. So, what does it mean to feel the bow? Basically, it's not so complicated. It's really that you need to feel what happened between the bow and the string. For this, just close your eyes, put the bow on the string, and then first try to feel the contact point. That means the point where the bow hairs come in contact with the string. Try to feel them. And actually, you should really feel that you can move the string. Here you will see very clearly that I'm moving my string from left to right without losing the contact with it. And then basically when I'm playing, I really want to feel this contact the whole time. I really want to feel that I'm pulling the string, like I'm doing right now. Now I will continue pulling it in one direction. And then I want to pull it continuously, okay? That's really like I'm taking it and I'm pulling it, okay? Pulling. And then when I'm playing in the other direction, it's the same, but in the opposite direction. I want to push the string in this direction. Push. And very important is to feel this the whole time. You can't just move the bow freely on the string. You need to pull it or push it. And actually that's interesting because in French we said tirer, pousser, okay? And that's not a hazard because a lot of things related to the bow come from France. For example, this is la technique supérieure de l'archer from Lucien Capet. That was one of the great master of the bow. And tirer, it's mean pulling. And pousser, it mean pushing. That means that instead of saying playing down and up, we say pull and push. And that makes total sense. So here is the next big mistakes I see a lot. And what I find really like very sad is that I see a lot of people in YouTube promoting this, and that's completely wrong. So here the problem is that you use Fingertape to know where to put the finger on the fingerboard. And I know there is a lot of people supporting this, so let me explain why that's wrong. So the problem when you put this Fingertape is that the only way to play the right note is to look at your finger the whole time. You need to look at it to know I need to put my finger there, I need to put my finger here, and so on and so on. And when you're doing that, what's happened is that you are focusing on seeing instead of focusing on hearing. And then you are just looking at a finger, and you don't even hear that it's not sounding good, okay? Because intonation is only one pillar. Actually, if you look at the Violin Pyramid Method, there is 5 main pillars. The first one is the sound quality, and if you're looking at your fingers the whole time, you will not really listen to what you are doing with the bow. Then the next one is the intonation, hitting the right notes. So here you will find, yeah, but it's good, I can play the right notes. Actually not, because it's not accurate enough to play the right notes. And when you start doing things like shifting, playing in other position, or even playing with other people's, it will not work anyway. And the worst here is that the day you remove them, then you will have to learn the left arm from the very beginning because you never train your hair. And then there is other pillar, like playing the right rhythm, the tempo, or playing with musicality. So intonation is just one thing, and like I said, it's not the right way to practice it. And I really had a ton of students that came to me with those fingertapes, and every single time they had really bad intonation. Like they played the violin for 1 year or more very often, and they had worse intonation than my students after 1 month, but never use any kind of fingertape or similar things. And then when we remove the fingertape, like they really needed a very, very long time to learn to play the right note because they never really listen to what they were doing. They were just focusing on looking at the finger, and because of that they are really having difficulties learning to play with the air. And one last thing about this. I know that a lot of people think it's like a new thing that's better than the old things, but let me tell you one thing, it's not true. I read mostly all the books from 1751 till today about violin learning, and I found something really interesting in this old book. So this is Leopold Mozart Grünliche Violinschule. It's a German book, okay, from Mozart's father, because Mozart was from Vienna. And it says that there was fingertape on the violin. It was not plastic from China. So they did it another way. They put some mark on the violin to learn to play. And what it says, okay, is that it's really the worst thing you could do to learn the violin. And just to say, he's one of the best violin teachers of history. He was the teacher of Amadeus Mozart, one of the greatest musicians of all time, and an amazing violin teacher. And because I studied how most of the famous violinists learn the violin themselves, I can really tell you that none of them use something like fingertape. Never. So now you think, yeah, but maybe it's because they were all really talented, had absolute hair, those kind of things. No, it doesn't matter. I have a lot of students, and always they learn to train by hearing. It always works. But the first step for this is just remove the fingertape and learn the violin the right way. So the next problem is practicing the wrong things and listening to some random feedback, basically. So here are 2 videos from the same person. This was the first video. And here is the second video, I think like 1 month later, after some people give him some feedback, but his wrist was too tight. So now it sounds way worse, because he's trying the whole time to move the finger, with the wrist of the bow, okay? And what I mean here, it's not that in the first video everything was perfect and that he should not move more the wrist, but the thing is that actually when I see the first video, what I see the main thing he should practice, it's not this, okay? So basically, what's very important is to understand at every step what you should practice now, okay, and what is the next step. And instead, what I see is that a lot of people, they just learn random things, basically. They do something and they feel, maybe notice something, or maybe they hear some YouTube video, or maybe the teacher look at them playing and then he notices one thing, and then they try to fix these things. And that's not the right way of learning. The right way of learning, it's like you start from 0 and then you learn everything in the right order, step by step, so that you always learn the right thing at the right time. And here, for example, this thing with the wrist, it's absolutely not the right time for a beginner like this man. And because of that, so a lot of other things are not really well, and because of that, its sound is now worse than it was before. And basically what it means is that you should really focus on learning the violin step by step from the very beginning with a real method, and then you should really get some professional feedback, some professional violin teacher about what should be your next step and what you should correct. Then the next one is really a big problem if you someday want to have a beautiful vibrato, because it will make it very difficult. And it's what this man is doing here. Yeah, the problem is that he's doing a fake vibrato. And I mean a fake vibrato because it's not a real vibrato. When you do something like this, that's not a real vibrato. It looks like a vibrato, but it's not a vibrato. And why I say it's not a vibrato is that no matter how many hours you practice this fake vibrato, it will not improve until it will never sound beautifully. Because it's just a fast movement of tension with the whole arm, and it will never become a real vibrato. Yeah, instead what you need to do is first, don't try to do vibrato if you are not at the level to learn the vibrato. Don't learn it too early, that's one big mistake. First, your intonation, the horn, everything should be very safe, very sure. And then when you start learning the vibrato, learn first to have a very controlled, slow vibrato. Okay, I have another video about vibrato, but basically you want really to start very slowly, so that you have a controlled movement that is really proportional, regular, and controlled. And then we use some specific exercise to increase the speed of it. But if you try directly to start with a super fast vibrato, you are just learning the wrong movement and you will not be able to learn the vibrato. Okay, on one last very simple mistake to correct that a lot of people do, not only beginners. So, here the problem is that a music stand is way too small, although she's playing like that. You probably heard a lot of time here that you need to hold the violin higher. Okay, and that's very important because when you hold the violin like that, the bow gets in this direction, and the sound is not very good. What you really want to do is support the violin so that you can put the bow from here down and really have some support for a beautiful sound. Violin go up, bow go down on the string, and then you can pull the string. And one of the main reasons I found actually why people hold the violin too low is just because they don't have the right music stand. They are always the music stand that are too low, okay? So what you should do instead is this. Basically, your music stand should stand like that this part is at more the same level at the bottom of the music stand. Okay? So that when you read, your A's go straight or a little up. But instead, if your notes are here, of course, you will do this. So now there is an exception, of course, because when you look at professional violinists in concert, the stand is very low. I do the same when I play in concert because you don't want to have this between you and the public. But then the solution is, and it's not so easy to do, I don't really like it, but you need to play here, but you need with the A's to look down, okay? And that's not very practical, because you are like this, and you are looking down. And that's the reason when you practice, and especially if you are not giving like a lot of concert or kind of things, like just buy a music sound that's high, so that you look the notes here, and not so. So you can subscribe here, thanks you for watching.